מצטרפים עכשיו שלושת המשתתפים בפאנל, כל אחד בקצה אחר של ארצות הברית, אבל עם מכנה משותף אחד, ההתמודדות עם שינוי האקלים העתידי שכבר מונח לפתחם היום. בבקשה.
Welcome everybody. Today we have a terrific panel that will explore the role of companies, major corporations, in addressing climate change. And we have three fantastic speakers today. First, we're going to hear from Cynthia Williams, who is the Global Director of Sustainability and Compliance at Ford Motor Company. She's been in this role since 2019, and she's responsible for developing a sustainable business plan and policies for Ford Motor Company. Next, we're going to hear from Mary Draves. Mary is the Chief Sustainability Officer and Vice President for Environment, Health, and Safety at Dow Chemical Company. And she, for many years, has been driving innovation and collaboration for achieving sustainability at Dow Chemical Company, and she'll share some of her experiences in that regard. And then lastly, we'll hear from Evan Van Hook, who is the Vice President of Health, Safety, Environment, Product Stewardship, and Sustainability for Honeywell International, a Fortune 100 company. And Evan's been in this role since 2004. Previous to that, he was the Assistant Commissioner at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. So with that, I'd like to start with Cynthia. Cynthia, last June, Ford announced that it intends to achieve carbon neutrality globally by 2050, becoming the only U.S. automaker to make this pledge. Cynthia, can you speak for a few minutes about how this decision was made and how Ford, as an automobile manufacturer, plans to achieve this objective?
Thank you, Brian. Sustainability is one of the biggest issues facing corporations today and a top priority at Ford. Through our 117-year history, Ford has put the world on wheels. From the moving assembly line and the $5 workday, to soy foam seats, to the aluminum F-150 and the Mustang Mach-E. Ford has a long heritage of progress. Ford is one of the first companies to issue a sustainability report. And these highlights, and the sustainability report highlights our leadership in industry in this area. Above all, we want to make sure that we leave a positive impact on the society where we live and work. 2 years ago, Ford issued its 20th annual sustainability report, where we set ambitious sustainability goals to help make a positive impact. And last year, we added an aspiration for climate change to become carbon neutral globally by 2050. Our carbon neutrality goal only expands on our previous commitment to the Paris Agreement. We are the only U.S. full-line manufacturer doing our part to reduce CO2 emissions and align with the Paris Agreement, as well as stand with California for stronger greenhouse gas emission standards. To achieve carbon neutrality, we will need to find a balance between the carbon emissions that we release from our vehicles and facilities and carbon removal. We plan to achieve our carbon neutrality aspirational goal by focusing on three main areas: our vehicles, our facilities, and our suppliers. That represents over 95% of our CO2 emissions globally. And we're making progress, and we're delivering now. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we have the Mustang Mach-E on the road, and a recent announcement regarding our South Africa plant, which is the first plant Ford globally will have achieve island mode status by the plant will be entirely self-sufficient, energy self-sufficient, and carbon neutral by 2024. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Let me ask Mary. Mary, in addition to a 2050 carbon pledge, Dow Chemical also focused its sustainability objectives on helping to drive toward a circular economy and also stopping plastic waste. Can you just touch briefly on Dow's goals in this regard, and specifically how, as a chemical company, you see your role in helping to create a circular economy?
Yeah, sure, Brian, and thanks for having me here today with Cynthia and Evan. It's a pleasure to see all of you. We cross paths occasionally, and it's really good to see you again. Brian, Dow is taking really, I think, a unique approach to carbon and the challenges of carbon reduction in circular economy and plastic waste, recognizing that the two are, inexplicably linked, very, very closely linked, and therefore approaching them together as we work to seek solutions. Like Ford, Dow announced last year a goal about protection of the climate, which talks about our commitment to implement and advance towards a carbon neutral environment. Dow will reduce its net carbon emissions, its net annual scope 1 and scope 2, and then also tackle carbon neutrality by 2050. So as we look at plastic, we know that plastic, or lightweighting of plastic is essential to that low carbon economy, but we also know that plastic waste really has to stop. It finds its way too many times into rivers and landfills and waterways and oceans, where it shouldn't be. So our plastics goal really consists of two targets: stopping the waste and closing the loop. Stopping the waste about investing in collaborating in key technologies and infrastructure to significantly increase global recycling. And then the closing the loop, where we ourselves as Dow are going to be looking at recommitting and redesigning and promoting reusable and recyclable materials. So we've developed comprehensive plans to really address both carbon neutrality and plastics in very similar ways. But we're committing to these actions in the following areas, especially for our plastic waste and circularity: keeping plastic out of the environment, increasing our impact through partnerships, and then delivering circular economy solutions. So when we talk about keeping waste out of the environment, we're participating in infrastructure projects that really improve global plastic recycling, such as working with partners to construct things like polymer modified asphalt roads and making these roads out of post-consumer recycled materials. We're also focusing these key partnerships on things like the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, of which Dow is a founding member, where companies have come together and pledged $1.5 billion to help develop and scale solutions about managing plastics waste in a wide variety of uses post its use. And then also, as we look to deliver circular economy solutions, investing in mechanical recycling and offering recycled plastics as part of our own portfolio. We have partnerships with Phoenix Ecogy Group to supply new feedstocks made from recycled plastic that will produce new Dow polymers, but then also working with brands such as Kellogg's in the Bare Naked granola brand to transform packaging into products to make them fully recyclable by using our recycle-ready materials.
Thanks so much, Mary. Evan, let me turn to you. Honeywell has developed something it calls the Sustainable Opportunity Policy, which focuses on integration of sustainability considerations in all of its business operations. As a company involved in a wide variety of technologies, from aerospace to materials to building technologies, can you explain a little bit about the history behind Honeywell's approach and how it works in practice?
Sure, Brian. It's a great question because I think it sort of highlights what I believe to be the most important issue in this sort of turning point in sustainability. And that is to take the notion of sustainability from an initiative or something that a company adopts because of perhaps stakeholder input and things, and transform that into a core element of how a company does business. And I think one of the easiest things to do is to look at analogs, because you can always say things like that, but we think there's a pretty close analog in the quality revolution that occurred in the mid-20th century, when, as you saw this tremendous growth in mass production, all of a sudden you found that you had lost the quality that was associated with smaller production units. And in response to that, they developed a lot of the processes that actually built quality directly into the manufacturing process. Probably the most famous of which perhaps is lean management, which relies on very careful data, empirically based planning, but then also a culture that is predicated on constant employee input. And those are sort of the two magic sides of lean from my perspective in terms of transforming an organization. And sort of one of the most important statements, although no one's who really knows who said it first, is that lean is to a certain extent predicated on the notion that it is easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than it is to think your way into a new way of acting. And what that means is that if you want to transform an organization, then you have to sort of specify the things that people should be doing on a daily basis to achieve that result and create the environment to encourage those. And eventually that does have an impact on the culture and the mindset. And we think that just as that really worked with the quality revolution, there's a tremendous analog in what people are trying to do in sustainability. Honeywell predicates its operations on a lean-based approach, and we call it the Honeywell operating system. And we sort of had a fortuitous opportunity with respect to sustainability because we launched our lean sort of journey at the same time that we launched our sustainability program back in 2003, 2004 timeframe. So when we had just gone through a number of corporate transitions, and this was the new approach that our then CEO, Dave Cote, wanted to approach when it wanted to launch. And I happened to come in at the same time from a strong sort of management system background. And the only reason I say that is that it gave us the opportunity to build sustainability directly into our lean approach. I won't go into all the details of that, but one indication is that the 5 key metrics of our lean approach are SQDIC, which are sustainability, quality, delivery, inventory, and cost. And so if it helped us to build sustainability into the same sort of mindset that we were using to drive our other corporate objectives. And again, based on a lot of empirical planning, but then daily employee engagement. Through this strategy, we have done thousands and thousands of sustainability projects. And I'm happy to say we are more than 90% reduced in our greenhouse gas intensity. We are about 70% improved in our energy efficiency. And we also use that mindset to drive our products. About 50% of our NPI R&D, our new product introduction R&D, is on our essentially our ESG portfolio. I won't go on too long, but one sort of key number is one of our top sustainability products is a low global warming potential refrigerant propellant, which we market under the Solstice line. And we calculate that that product alone has avoided more than 200 million metric tons of CO2e to the atmosphere. So that's, to my mind, the most important thing. We focused very much on how do you make sustainability part of the operating environment.
Thank you so much, Evan and Mary and Cynthia. And it's very, very exciting to hear how forward-leaning and how concrete corporations are being in terms of achieving sustainability objectives for the world, really. And there's so much going on now, particularly with the, as everyone knows, the Biden administration's approach with respect to carbon neutrality and sustainability and tackling climate change, including several executive orders and re-entering the Paris Accord. So I wanted to ask all three of you, given your priorities and the objectives that each of you has for your companies, what do you see as the major obstacles over the next few years in terms of achieving your goals? Evan, would you like to start?
Oh, sure. I guess I would maybe use a different O word, maybe opportunities rather than just obstacles, because I really do believe that we, again, are at that turning point where it seems clear to a lot of people that the green economy and innovation is going to have a tremendous impact on solving our environmental challenges. When you think about, like, historically, The other great global environmental challenge of the ozone layer, we did align on a global approach to protecting that. We agreed to it. There were technological innovations, and that issue is, thankfully on its way to healing. And we can't do the kinds of things that we need to do to achieve the environmental outcomes that we need simply by governmental mandate. I come from government, as you indicated, and writing a law does not generate results necessarily. It's just a law. And so I think the challenge going forward is going to be to just turn loose that innovative drive lined up with a green economy that will harness an awful lot of very smart people at every level of the economy to drive for more sustainable results.
Great. Thanks, Evan. Mary, how about from your perspective? What do you see are the major obstacles and opportunities of the coming years?
Well, Brian, I think that Evan and I share some similar thoughts on this. Regulation is one of those things that is going to be a challenge for all of us if not done scientifically well, and also levels the playing field. It cannot favor one or the other. So how do we do that so that it's levels the playing field for everyone? But I think that Evan hit on something, that's this ability to collaborate. I mean, if we looked at how we've managed some of the really huge issues with the COVID crisis in the last 12 months and how fast a vaccine came out, that was about us collaborating with one another and solving those challenges together. So bringing the best of which everyone has to offer, whether it be industry, whether it be NGO, whether it be government, academia, together to really say, hey, what is the issue that we have in front of us? How can we solve that together? And collaboration is going to be really important because none of us will be able to do that on our own. And I think we've all talked about this, but the case for sustainability in business is extremely clear. It's a journey, and we're all on this together, and it needs to start somewhere. And over time, sustainability has become infused in everything that we've done in our businesses and throughout our company's strategy and also my colleagues' strategy. It's the lens by which we make all business decisions, how we run our operations, and how we innovate new products and safer, more sustainable materials. So at Dow, this is really part of our stated ambition and purpose. It's how we do business. And I think that's really the exciting opportunity for all of us. And so for each of us, no matter where we are on that journey, it's about collaborating and relationship building to get us to where we need to go. And we'll find that common ground. And when we find that common ground, we're going to be able to challenge ourselves to think bigger, bolder, and braver, and to be able to accomplish and achieve things in sustainability that we never thought were possible. And I think that's very exciting. But we need one another to do that. And I really believe that working and collaborating together will bring us to that future of a more sustainable world.
Thank you so much, Mary. And Cynthia, you get the last word. You talked about the Ford Motor Company's very, very ambitious program to become carbon neutral. What do you see as your major obstacles when you look in the coming years?
We encourage initiatives to help drive development, access, and acceptance of electric vehicles, of our high volume versions. We believe charging infrastructure, both retail and commercial, is key. Both monetary and non-monetary incentives are so important as we work to drive down the cost of batteries to achieve ICE to BEV parity. And as both Evan and Mary stated, working together is key. We must work together to solve these challenges, to understand how we must better educate consumers, governments around these types of regulations, and work with the governments around the globe on what economic factors must change to accelerate the market and the availability of carbon neutral electricity and renewable fuels. All of this plays a role, but we must work together to make sure that we can achieve and solve these challenges. We must work quickly to solve these issues. Thanks again for having Ford on the panel. Thanks, Brian. Thanks to both Mary and Evan. Appreciate being here today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you, all three of you, for participating in this conference, Israel and the Environment, or the third annual conference. And the energy that you bring to this issue is so exciting and palpable, and really appreciate your participation today. Thank you.
And from Israel, thank you very much for this fascinating panel.